Hey, Walter Sorrells back with more tips for the knife maker. Today, Cerakote and a free knife giveaway. So today I'm going to be showing the making of my brand new Tactics Armory Eclipse skeleton fixed blade. So a skeleton blade, meaning it doesn't have any handle scales, just raw steel, making it real light and real simple to carry. Now, I've already done several videos on the standard version of the Eclipse, which has Micarta handle scales. So today I'm going to focus mostly on something that I didn't show in the previous video, which is the application of Cerakote. So if you're interested in Cerakoting your knives, I'm going to show you my process, including some tips for ways to save money on what can be kind of an expensive process. Before I get started, I'll be giving one lucky viewer a free Eclipse this month, exactly like the ones that you see in this video. So all you have to do is run over to tacticsarmory.com, my website, and sign up for the mailing list, and that puts you in the drawing for the knife, so don't miss out. All right, let's jump into the project. Before we get started on the Cerakote, let's take a quick look at the knife. Now, I'll link to the earlier videos if you want more detail about how I went about designing this basic knife, the Eclipse, making it, all that good stuff. I introduced the basic version of the knife last year with Micarta scales. Now, there's more to making the skeleton version than just taking the scales off, though. The way that I make it normally, I use the fastener holes of the scales to hold the Eclipse blade down on the fixture that it's made on. So with the skeleton design, which has this big set of holes replacing the handle scale version, I have to find another way to fixture it. Fortunately, I knew when I first started making this Eclipse that I wanted to do some variants, including some that might have thong holes and skeletons like this that wouldn't be able to use the main fastener hole. So I provided an extra hole on the pallet that I made for my CNC machine. So basically it goes through the same sequence of steps that I used on the other version. After that, it's cleaned up on the grinder, the tabs ground off, and it's converted to something that actually looks like a knife. Obviously, I'm doing this with CNC, but this could just as easily be done through conventional grinding techniques, the way I used to do this exact same kind of knife. No big deal one way or the other. Then, heat treating. So I'll link to the earlier videos if you want more detail about how I went about designing it, making it, all that good stuff. So we're going to kind of skip mostly to the Cerakoting here. Now, if you're not familiar with Cerakote, it's a process that's used to give a really durable coating to metal. You can color it all kinds of different colors. So Cerakote is, an actual brand. You buy the material from them. It is an epoxy type material that has some kind of ceramic in it that makes it really pretty durable and resists scuffing and stuff like that. Anyway, today we're going to be using black, but in the future I'm going to be producing, just for this knife, but plenty of my other knives, a bunch of other colors, OD green, desert tan, maybe some other things. Okay, so now we've arrived at the main focus of this video, which is Cerakoting. The first step is to prep the surface. I'll start by blasting it with an abrasive blaster using aluminum oxide blasting media. Cerakote is one of a bunch of different epoxy-based metal coatings, but it's the most popular, and for good reason. They have lots of colors, it's not crazy hard to apply, though there are others that are easier, and it stands up pretty well to wear. Cerakote has several different kinds of products, some of which don't require a heat cure and others that have all kinds of other specialized properties, but this is what they call H-series product, which is pretty much the standard Cerakote, and it does require a heat cure. Next, I'll degrease using acetone. After this point, I'm really scrupulous about using clean gloves and not letting the blades get near any sort of oily surfaces. Cerakote has a very detailed set of instructions about how to apply this stuff. You can find it on their website. Now, I don't doubt that the basic Cerakote approach, which I'm actually following pretty closely, is the best way to do this. But it's not the only way. You can prep using sandpaper, steel wool, any kind of abrasive that will give you a clean but slightly toothy surface, something for the epoxy to grab onto, and it will work, if maybe not as well as the factory standard approach. Point is, if you want to play with this stuff in a home shop and you don't have a blasting cabinet and some of the other gear that I'm going to show, that is not the end of the world. Cerakote is a two-part epoxy. It's sold in a variety of sizes with an appropriate amount of catalyst included for whatever size you get. For a normal, slightly matte finish, the proportion of product to catalyst is 18:1. Now, you should mix it in a glass beaker, not plastic. In this particular case, I smashed my graduated beaker just before filming, and so we're making do. Now, if you want it more matte or if you just want it shinier, you vary the proportions and you'll get a different effect. 12:1, shiny, 24:1, very matte. Pot life is about 2 hours, so you don't have to kill yourself applying it before it hardens in the sprayer. They recommend straining it, so that's what I do. Preparatory to applying the Cerakote, I made some racks to hold the blades. This is how I did it for the volume of knives that I typically make. As you'll see, this way I can get up to 24 at a time in my curing oven. You'll notice that I used 1/4 bolts to hold each knife. This is maybe the most important little tip in this video. A lot of the stuff that you'll see made with Cerakote are firearm parts, which are fairly heavy. Now, if you blow a bunch of compressed air on a knife that's hanging from a wire or a string or a hook, it'll tend to just flap around like crazy and you can't get a predictable amount of epoxy applied. Now, you can hold on to it, but then at a certain point, you just got to let go of it because wherever you hold it's going to mess up the epoxy. And that can lead to streaking, dripping, missed spots, and all that sort of thing. But a 1/4 bolt is just barely smaller than the standard fastener holes that I use in my knives. You may use something different and need a different size bolt, but the basic idea will work for anything. The ridges on the bolt keep the knives from sliding off, but the bolt's just small enough that you can slide the knives off and on easily. Now, I'm using a commercial sprayer like you'd use for auto body work, you know, lacquering guitars, all that sort of thing. When I started using Cerakote years ago, I started out with a tiny little El Cheapo sprayer made for airbrushing. So there are a lot of different ways you can do this, and they'll all work. Very little air is required. You're not pumping out huge amounts of this stuff. So the smallest compressor you can get your hands on will work just fine. You don't need some giant 80-gallon compressor. Now, my old setup wasn't ideal, but it worked. So don't think you have to run out and buy some super fancy paint spraying rig just to do this for a couple knives at home. The key point here is that you want to go around and around making sure you get all the surfaces. As long as you're not spraying too hard, spraying too much Cerakote, you can go over a couple or 3 passes and it's really going to look just fine. So better to go a little heavy and get all the surfaces than to miss something. Again, the point of using these longish 1/4 bolts on my rack is to have enough clearance from the rear to get an even application of the Cerakote.
Quick note before we wrap up, don't forget, if you want to win Tactics Armory Eclipse, this knife right here, jump over to tacticsarmory.com, my website, sign up for the email list, and you're in the running for the giveaway this month. I'll announce the winner in, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks on one of my Friday 5 videos. All right, let's get back to it.
Next, the blades are cured at 250 Fahrenheit for 2 hours. Now, here's the new part of my setup. I haven't been doing Cerakote for quite a few years now, so my plan here as I started doing it again was to go with a completely different approach than I had years back, which frankly was kind of jury-rigged. So I wanted to get a curing oven just for Cerakoting. Now, I priced commercial ovens and I found them to be just ridiculously expensive. So poking around on YouTube, I found a bunch of guys using this, a cheap electric smoker made for smoking, pork butts and brisket and whatever. But they seem ideal for this purpose, so I figured I'd give it a try. I found one on sale at Home Depot in the fall when they were closing out all the summer type outdoor stuff. I forget what I paid, but as I recall, it was like $100. Minor little modding here by adding a couple of eye bolts in the top of the smoker. And since I made my own painting racks, I made them specifically to fit neatly inside the smoker so that the knives weren't going to bang into each other, bang into the walls. Set it to 250 Fahrenheit and walk away for 2 hours. Now I'll pop my logo on there with this fiber laser. And we're done.
Hope you had fun with this project. Cerakote is a great thing if you're looking to kind of distinguish your knives and do something that everybody else in the world's not doing. They have tons and tons of colors, and they're just, a lot of things that it can add to your sort of palette of techniques and designs. So anyway, obviously there are a lot of different ways to do Cerakote. If you read their documentation, they make it sound like it's a really finicky process. It's all available online if you buy material from them. But anyway, it's not really that complicated a process. The one key point though, and this is true of anything where you're trying to stick some adhesive stuff to steel, is that surface prep's pretty important, especially degreasing. If you have a layer of grease on there and you try and, epoxy handle scales or whatever it might be onto steel, it's going to resist that, and over time it's liable to fall off. So that part of this process needs to be done reasonably carefully. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and keep on making those knives.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe and make sure that you click on that bell so you get notified of all the latest videos. Want to buy a knife from me? Check out my modern blades at tacticsarmory.com. Digging the channel? You can support our video making efforts on Patreon. I've been banging away on these videos for like 10 years, so I hope you'll show some love for all that hard work. Link in the cards and descriptions. Finally, if you're interested in making Japanese swords, check out my full line of Japanese sword videos where I show how to forge Japanese swords as well as how to polish them and how to make fittings, handles, and scabbards. WalterSorrellsBlades.com.